Hey everybody, it's Jonah Lupton back again with another episode for the Startup Sense podcast. We got another good one. Today on the phone I have Wendi Burkhardt. She is the founder of Silvernest, and the company is based out of the Boulder, Denver area. And we're going to talk about her company and what they're doing for the 50 plus crowd in terms of home sharing. Wendi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Happy Friday.
Thank you. So before we talk about Silvernest, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks you. Well, heck, what can I tell you? I am the CEO and co-founder of Silvernest, and as I kind of jokingly shared in an interview this week at Entrepreneur Magazine, this is not my first rodeo. I've spent 25 years of my career working in technology in a lot of varied roles. I spent my early part of my career in telecom when that was emerging, then moved into wireless and mobile. Spent some time in the dot-com madness, sort of at the hype of everything. And I would say throughout my career, I've really been a combination of an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. And I think in the course of the last 5 to 6 years, in particular, I've focused specifically and directly on being a founder and an entrepreneur. And that's led me to Silvernest. And, I'm most excited about Silvernest because it allows me to leverage the past experience that I've had working with some amazing businesses and in the world of technology, and using that to actually support something that I believe has tremendous impact in our society. And that to me it's sort of the winning combination. So I'm really excited about where I am right now and what I get to do every day.
Awesome. So tell us about Silvernest. What does the company do?
So Silvernest is an online roommate matching platform designed to specifically pair people over 50 with the perfect roommate. We're focused on obviously leveraging the emergence of the shared economy and the adoption of the shared economy to help encourage folks to think about alternatives in aging. So we've designed a platform that makes it really, really seamless and easy for people to move through the process of finding the right roommate and then setting up the relationship for great success. That includes everything from using a matching algorithm that's a lot like a dating algorithm, including ID verification, background screening, setting up a lease that's been customized specifically for state compliancy, and then also helping folks set up auto rent payments. And we do all of that through our platform, and make it very seamless and very transparent for folks to connect.
So how big of a market is this? Do you have any idea how many 50 plus people are out there living in their homes by themselves that could, potentially be a match for your platform?
Well, it's very significant. So I'll give you some stats that I think are interesting to hear from most people. We talk so much in the US about millennials and the size of the millennials and their influence on the market. And I think what most people aren't recognizing is that in the next 14 years, 36% of our population will actually be over the age of 50. So we are turning 65 at the rate of 11,000 people per day in the United States, which is significant. And what we know about this next generation, this next generation of aging is going to be so different from what we've known in the past. First and foremost, we are living much, much longer, right? I hear staggering numbers now that say we're going to live to be 120, which scares the pants off of me. But this generation of boomers in particular who are aging are really going to change the way that they age. So today there's 109 million people over 50. We reach 136 million, like I said, in the next 14 years. And what we know about this population right now, today, there are 32 million people between the ages of 50 and 80 that live alone.
Wow.
And probably the scary number in all of that is that almost 50 million of the same demographic has less than $50,000 saved for retirement. So when you go back to that, hey, we're turning 65 at the rate of 11,000 a day. We're going to live a really long time, but we don't have enough money. That gets to be really scary. And those are really two of the biggest issues that I think we're facing as we age. It really centers around financial security and isolation. Those two things are, social isolation, those two things can cause a lot of stress in aging. And that's really what we're focused on trying to serve.
And lack of money causes probably even more isolation because there's less things that you
Mhm.
can afford to do.
Absolutely. Here's a scary number for you that I learned. I didn't know this, but it has relevance for me. In terms of aging, there is an increased rate of death by 26% if you live alone over the age of 50.
I
That's kind of
believe it.
staggering.
Because if something
Staggering.
happens, something happens, you fall in your house or you have a heart attack, there's no one there to help you. You're all by yourself.
There's that, and there's also just, we've in the last 30 to 50 years, um, we've changed, right? We've had the luxury of living independently, having beautiful homes, pushing sort of out from our urban centers. The downside of that in aging is that there's a lot more isolation than there ever used to be as we age. We used to be a lot more organized around family, kind of at the core in aging. And it wasn't terribly long ago that people brought in boarders and just stayed a lot more connected. And when you look at the implications of isolation and aging, it has direct impact on, mental, your cognitive capabilities, right, and your just general health and well-being. And it's something that I encourage everybody to really think about as we move into aging, because it's the one thing that you can sort of control in terms of your health destiny.
Right,
It's as simple
right.
as even getting a pet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wonder if there's a stat out there how much longer people live once they have a pet.
You
That
know,
an
no,
emotional.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. It's just probably hard
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
track. No, I mean, I spent 10 years in the wealth management space, and a lot of my clients were, older, retired. Many of them were, widowed. Um, and a big problem was that they lived, the majority of their assets that they had left was their house. They had a
Mhm.
500,000, 800,000, $1 million house, but they only had $100,000 in retirement savings.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem, I think, for the baby boomer population. Some of them just didn't have the ability to save as much for retirement, but yet they have this house with all this wealth. They don't really want to sell the house and go rent an apartment. So the idea of being able to do home sharing makes a lot of sense. So you guys are that's a big part of the service is those homeowners they want the rental income as well as the companionship, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think in our early adopters, we recognize that about 70% of them are really inspired to do this for the financial benefit. And even if they don't necessarily need the money, there's something nice about having the extra income to do all the things that you might want to do otherwise and not really think too hard about it. And then certainly there's a component of individuals who they're motivated to do this for the connectivity. So I think we see both groups adopting the concept of having a roommate. And I jokingly when I pitch, as we've been on the fundraising circuit, and I kind of jokingly will tend to say, hey, having a roommate is something that we all did really naturally, or most of us did naturally in our 20s. Most people have had a roommate experience, maybe some that we want to forget about, but I think, it wasn't a foreign concept. But then as we get older, we get a lot more nervous and vulnerable, and we don't tend to think of it as an option. And I think our argument is, well, why not? Right? It's so easy. And what we know, the good news is that, to your point about the wealth management, I think 85% of these people we know have a house and they own a house. And by the way, as they live longer, they're healthier and they're stronger and they can stay in their house. So these same folks are the ones who are saying, I want to stay in this house. 95% of the people surveyed are saying they want to be able to die in their house. And the the fact that they own their home and the fact that they are healthier as they're living longer allows them to consider that option as long as they can afford to stay there and they're not living by themselves.
Right. I mean, and in-home healthcare aid for some of those older people is expensive, but still not as expensive as moving into a facility, assisted living or nursing home. I've paid those bills for clients in the past, and they can be anywhere from 5,000 a month to 15,000 a month.
You're
Uh,
right. They're
Very expensive.
brutal.
Yep.
They're brutal. And I think one of the things that we don't think about also is, um, certainly those communities and those services are designed to serve a particular need state, right? And there's certainly people who are going to thrive in those environments. But I also think one of the things that happens in those environments is there's a lack of diversity in terms of the people that you get to be surrounded by. And there's a lot to be said for not just, how many of us would actually just choose right now at the age of 30 or 40 to just go live in one community with everybody who was only our age and only have that experience. Probably none of us. And so it's interesting that we're sort of forced to do that as we get older. So that's kind of the other downside beyond the financial aspect of it. That's the other downside of not being able to stay in your community or in your home as you age.
Right. So take us back to the beginning when you knew you wanted to start something. When did this idea come to you? How did it come to you? What, data or research did you do to determine if it was a problem worth pursuing? And then how did you, really launch the company, in terms of funding, building the website? Did you run any pilot programs? I know that's a lot of questions, but
No. Well, it's, at the simplest answer is that we've been live with the product for just about a year now, and we really organized around the idea back in January of 2015, and we went into development that in February of 2015. The early idea, I have to give credit. I had an early co-founder whose name is Chuck McKinney, and I have to give him credit for the original idea and actually the name, because he had been he's had a successful career in commercial real estate development, and in particular, in the last 4 years, has focused on developing alternative housing solutions for aging and creating unique aging communities for individuals who have Alzheimer's.
oh,
And he had this, he had a strong awareness that as people were having to transition, and clearly these individuals had a different need state than what we're focused on, but they were still facing the same challenge of you've got to take somebody and move them out of their home, and they weren't ready to leave, and they didn't really want to leave their community. And so, simultaneously, he and his wife Deborah had a home that had excess room, and they found themselves bringing their family in to share their space, and it really perpetuated this idea. And we were great friends. My father had just passed away, and my mother was living outside of Atlanta in her situation, kind of on her own for the first time in her life. And the idea just made a lot of sense to me. And we were able to pair up, kind of bringing, our combined skills together. My background in tech, obviously, combined with their experience in aging, really brought us together around the concept. And so we paired up, and they continue to be investors, and Chuck sits on the board. But they're not operational day to day, but they really were an important part of us coming together to do this.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. So talk about the funding. Were you guys, how long did you bootstrap? And then at what point did you raise money? I know you went through an accelerator, so maybe you can take us through that process.
Yeah, sure. So we bootstrapped the company with our own money for about the first year, and we have been raising a seed. We raised it in a couple stages, and we successfully closed a first stage of that at the beginning of August this past year. And we're just about 2 weeks away from closing the rest of the seed, so I'm thrilled for that. And yeah, we just actually completed 2 weeks ago a 4-month program with 500 Startups Accelerator in Silicon Valley, which was phenomenal. More benefit than I could have ever imagined in terms of what it brought to us regarding our growth and our trajectory, and certainly access to investors and exposure to the investment community in that area.
So 500 startups, definitely one of the top accelerators out there, very intense. I mean, you said it was 3 months or 4 months?
It was, well, roughly 4 months. So we started in the middle of July. We completed the program at the end of October, and then we were there for a few additional weeks in follow-on.
Okay. So you went into it with Silvernest, right? And I mean, you haven't pivoted or anything since then?
No, we're exactly who we were going in, just
Okay.
a little bigger.
Yeah, that's the hope.
That's
So
right.
what? So obviously, part of the program, it ends up with a demo day where you get to pitch to investors. So that's one reason you want to be an accelerator. What other types of value did the program bring to the company?
You know what I think the most important, there's so much, and I really am so grateful that we had the opportunity. But I think we went into the 500 program at the best possible time that we could have for our business. And I say that because 500s, they have an amazing focus on growth. And literally, when people say to me, um, what does an accelerator mean? And I said, in its simplest form, it means you accelerate. Like, we accelerated our growth um, in ways beyond what I could have ever imagined. So, we went in at the right time. We had enough money to actually be able to invest in trialing some new growth strategies and tactics. And the net result of that was that we grew our key metrics 64% month over month during that program, which was huge.
That's huge. Yeah.
Um, and that was really and truly, I give them full credit, because the access that we had to some of the various resources to get hyper focused and hyper specific about the testing and our KPIs and some of the growth um, investments that we could make really made all the difference in the world. So the investor side of it was certainly important, but I would really say that the absolute core benefit of being in the program for us was centered around growth and helping us design our growth engine for scalability over the course of the next 12 to 18 months.
What were some of the growth marketing strategies that you implemented during the 500 Startups Accelerator that really helped you get that 64%, month over month growth?
Yeah, so we are still working on a limited budget that in our spend. So what that means is that we're really focused on our on digital acquisition at this point in time, and so we really are using a combination of digital strategies and all the things that you would consider Facebook, Google. But I think what's interesting is that even 6 months prior to that, we had met with an agency that was here local to talk about doing some of the same things. And there's a vast difference in understanding how to invest or spend dollars with an accuracy and an effectiveness if you're working with the right tool sets. And I think that is really what made the difference. It isn't just simply about going out and or running a campaign on Google. It's really about understanding the nuances and the intricacies of those with a certain specificity um, that make all the difference. And I think that's where we really benefited.
So when you say digital, you're talking SEO, you're talking paid,
Yep, that's
content,
right.
social, all that stuff. Is there one channel that has really been the most effective?
Um, we sort of balance between Facebook and Google. I think between the two, those have been phenomenal for us, and we're just now starting to branch out into some other channels and start trialing some other channels, which I'm super excited about.
So this kind of leads into my next question is how do you actually target your customers? I mean, the 50, I mean, what I mean by that is the 50-year-olds, maybe the 60-year-olds are a little bit more tech savvy. Certainly the 70 and 80-year-olds are not.
Right.
So how do you get them? Are you targeting their caretakers or their kids, who help out with some of this stuff?
Yep. Well, so going back to the beginning of our conversation, I think the greatest opportunity lies in focusing on the target audience that's between the ages of 50 and 75. So the beauty there is that these folks are actually pretty sophisticated. It's interesting because we were part of Entrepreneur 360's conference this week. We were nominated for their list this year. And as part of that, I was on a list, I'm sorry, I was on a panel discussing the use of social media to grow your business. And I was sharing with the audience, because the question that I get more often than not is, this audience doesn't seem very savvy online, so how do you get to them? And one of the first things is that if we're talking to somebody who's over the age of 80, they're probably decisioning for a different need state. So that's not my direct focus, right? We're really focusing on this segment that's really between the ages of 50 and 75. And the truth there is that this audience is actually way more savvy than they get credit for. So they are online daily.
My parents are not savvy at all, but my dad's finally on Facebook. I had to show him a couple nights ago how to actually comment on a post. He couldn't figure it out. He didn't realize that you had to push the enter button to actually officially comment. Like he could type it in, but he didn't know how to actually post it. Crazy.
Well, I want to talk to you in a few months and see what's changed, because usually what happens is they get a little addicted after they get used to it. So it's,
now he loves going on Facebook and looking at his, grandkids' pictures and videos.
Exactly.
He loves the funny videos.
So here's an interesting statistic. This audience is actually the largest consumer of YouTube.
Wow.
And Google put out a report earlier this year that actually indicated that they're one of the fastest growing segments in YouTube. And they actually like YouTube for search, which is really interesting. So I always say this group doesn't get enough credit, because 60% of them own a smartphone, 75% of them are shopping online. And the reality is that we have sort of a perception of what we think aging is, or who someone who's aging is, and what their behaviors are. And in regards to tech specifically, we're probably at the highest rate of illiteracy in our aging population in tech that we will ever be at, right? Because this next generation that's coming in, these are the fathers of most of the technology that we're using today in many ways. So this group is only going to continue to get savvier and continue to adopt technology and innovation as part of their aging experience, which I think is really exciting.
I mean, I try to get my parents to be more savvy. Like, I want them to start paying their bills online. I want, if they want to see pictures of the grandkids, not that I have any grandkids, but my siblings do, I convince them to go on Facebook and Instagram, just so they can feel connected to their grandkids who may live, 4 or 5 hours away and they can't see them all the time. So,
yeah,
that's a big part of it. I think it's the kids that are bringing their parents into this.
Well, grandkids for sure is like the number one motivator for the generation to join Facebook more than anything else, hands down.
Now, talk about some of the partnerships, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of natural ones out there with caretaking agencies, and the list goes on and on. So how are you, diving into that?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. There's some really ripe opportunities for us as we continue to expand and grow. We've had some interesting discussions with folks in insurance. And I think as we continue to expand, we're going to learn more and more about what the need states are of these individuals. I think, there's probably some things that we haven't even come to identify yet with this particular audience. But, we're working really hard to establish a brand that carries a certain amount of trust by helping these individuals establish a trusted relationship in their match. And we hope that by virtue of doing that, they'll continue to recognize our brand as a trusted brand and resource for other service sets that we look forward to introducing. Caregiving is a little tricky. Well, I think, it's not something that I see us going into directly in the future. We'll likely figure out the right partnership with other organizations in that regard. But I think, caregiving has its own set of nuances that really requires a slightly different focus. But there are so many other things that we think are interesting, particularly in the world of sort of personal interests and hobbies and lifestyle choices. There are a number of things that we find really exciting for the future.
Yeah, I can see where Silvernest is kind of like your hub or your platform for, a lot of these services, whether it's bill pay, whether it's food delivery, whether it's caretaking, whether it's home cleaning. I mean, the list goes on and on of what, a lot of these people want in terms of services. And as the child, I want to make sure that my parents are getting those services, or parent, I guess, since it's mostly, if one parent, I guess, is gone, then the other parent is looking for something like this. So
Well, and that's an interesting point because not surprisingly, we're not just seeing our early users be in single individuals. That's not always the case. Sometimes it is couples. We
Okay.
see families. We've seen kind of an interesting mix. So I think it really depends on everybody's individual situation. It hasn't, and some of it was a little bit of a surprise to us as well in the beginning. But it isn't just simply the single individuals who are looking at the solution. There's uh, some interesting combinations and some interesting pairings that are probably outside of what we thought would be sort of the norm.
I can see that. I can see where a couple in their 70s or even 80s wants to have someone a little bit younger in the house. They're also providing some income to help pay the tax bill and the insurance bill and all that stuff. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
Absolutely.
Um, what has been the biggest challenge, for you or the company since you got started?
I think helping people believe that this is an opportunity. So I think, again, we talk so much about the millennials that I think people forget to really talk about aging. And I think that aging isn't always as fun and sexy to talk about, right? And so people don't necessarily want to think about it or talk about it in the same with the same excitement that we might have if we're really developing a service or product for a younger generation. And so I think there's a perception there that we work to overcome and generate excitement around. And, we're seeing a lot of change in that regard by leaps and bounds, particularly in the last 12 to 15 months. But I think, at a minimum, I think that's really been the hardest thing is to get people to understand the enormity of the situation that we're facing in the US with aging and really understand the size of the opportunity.
Right, right. Which channels are you going to start doubling down on? You think the Facebook ads, just because you can target location and demographic, is going to be one of your biggest sources for new customers?
I think we'll continue to focus on those, and we have sort of a bag of tricks that we're waiting to deploy that I'll keep a little quiet for now. But I think we're interested in trying a variety of new channels. There's certainly some things offline too that we're interested in testing and exploring. So, we're trying all kinds of things to see what's going to work best for us, and I think we're excited to continue with what we found to be working and generating success, but then to complement that with some exciting new tactics as well.
I can see where word of mouth becomes a valuable referral
Oh, yeah.
source of business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you just think about your own personal experiences, right? And, where do you lean in to get suggestions or to, hear about other services? So much of what we do is it comes through recommendations and referrals from friends and family and people that you trust. So you're absolutely right.
In terms of the investors, so you got 125,000 from 500 startups. What do they take, 7 or 8%?
It's actually an amount lesser than that, and I think it varies based on each company and each
Okay.
situation. Yeah,
Okay. And then you've raised approximately how much after that?
yeah. So we're pretty close to closing our seed round, which is 1.25 million.
Awesome. Okay. How many different investors do you have in that round?
We have right now we have a couple of funds that are part of our round, and then a handful of individual angels as well.
How did you find the angels? Was it through Demo Day or through 500 startups?
Um, a lot, a lot of networking.
I think that's an underestimation for a lot of
Yeah,
founders. They don't
I
realize
think
how
I
big an undertaking it is.
oh my goodness. When people say it's a full-time job, it is truly a full-time
Yeah.
job. God bless my team for keeping the ship running. But I think it takes an enormous amount of networking and conversation to find the right ones. And I think, that's an important thing. We have a group of investors that I could not be more excited about. We just have some amazing investors in our round that I'm proud to have in our round that are, um, and I think it's nice to be able to like look at the group that's supporting you and think, wow, this is just an amazing group of people. So I think we're really fortunate in that regard as well.
That's great. That's exciting. You mentioned the team. How big is the team now?
Yeah, so we have a full-time team of 5, amazing group, and then we have a few additional folks that help us out part-time on a regular basis. And I think we're probably at capacity with the team momentarily. We'll be looking in about 6 or 7 months to add a few other folks to the team.
Okay. And I mean, everyone is based in the Denver Boulder area.
Yep, they sure are.
And are they mostly technical or support, customer service, marketing, sales? How do you guys break them up?
You know what? We have a broad range. I think we are nicely diversified. So, combo of tech, product, marketing, and finance. So, I think we're working hard to cover all the bases.
And how does, I mean, you were in San Francisco for a while for 500 startups. You probably know that the difficulties with recruiting out there, how competitive it is. What does it look like in Denver or Boulder? I mean, is there talent available? Do you have to recruit from out of state? How difficult has it been to find the right people?
It's been we've been fortunate. So, I have to first just really, you know, give sort of a um, a huge thank you and gratitude to my team because I have truly one of the most phenomenal teams that I think somebody could ask for. And I am really fortunate because all of the folks that showed up on my team, we did not actively recruit for. They showed up and asked to participate and came with some incredible skills that we were able to bring into the business. And, it's been interesting because as we look forward in terms of who we want to bring in, um, there's absolutely some key talent that we need to consider hiring. And it's interesting being out in the valley, thinking about technical hires as an example. People say, well, do you think that you'll hire here? We are still a Colorado based business. And what I'm excited about is that the Denver Boulder ecosystem for talent right now is hot, hot, hot. It is just super exciting, really hot. The state of Colorado has put a lot of effort into trying to establish Denver Boulder, in that regard. And so I think we're in a great position to be able to leverage those talent pools here. And no offense to my friends in Silicon Valley, but it'll probably be a heck of a lot less expensive to
Oh,
do
yeah.
that. So, I think we'll stay the course with our talent pool here.
Right. I mean, I would assume that the salaries that you're paying people at Silvernest in Colorado is probably half of what it would cost in San Francisco, but it's also it's probably 50% cheaper to live in Colorado than it is in the Bay Area. So that's a big
Well,
part of it.
yeah. Yeah, no. By no means there's some absolute advantages for us being here in the Colorado area.
Now let's talk about real quickly the business model. So how does Silvernest make money?
So we have a couple iterations of monetization. One that's launching in the second part of our pricing will launch next early first quarter of next year. But the current model is a kind of pay for use model. So the homeowner and the renter pay a service fee to sign up and use the service. The homeowner pays $29.99 and they get 3 months worth of service that allows them unlimited communication, unlimited matches and pairings, identity verification, and use of the back-end tool suite, including the lease and the payment services. The renter slash housemate pays us $9.99 a month. And then they also pay a $29.99 application fee to sign up or to apply for a particular property, and that includes their background check.
Cool. Awesome. Um, okay, this is a question I don't normally ask, but for some reason I just feel like I want to ask it, is what is one feature, and this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs deal with when they build any platform, is what's one feature that that the team created that really isn't being used, if there is one, and then what's one feature that your current customers or clientele are asking for?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we created was the lease, and I'm surprised at how many people don't use a lease. And I'll say this because um, in a lot of states, most people don't realize this, but if you don't have a lease on file in a significant amount of states, if you allow somebody to move into your house and you don't have any contractual terms against that, you could be in a really vulnerable situation because a renter can actually get squatters' rights. And it can be very challenging to get somebody out of the home. So I think we're continuously surprised at the amount of people who perhaps they have a different tool on file that they choose to use.
Right, right.
But it's surprising to me the amount of people that actually don't understand the importance of having the right tool. And even if you have a tool, that tool is not always designed to protect you at the highest level. So, there you can go, there's a lot of places you can go and scrape a lease offline and use a lease. But what will generally happen is if you just use sort of a common document and it doesn't have language in there that protects you at a state level, that really is defined for your particular situation, can tend to not be defensible in a challenging situation. So I think that's the thing that surprises me. And we believe that our opportunity is to continue to educate our
Right.
users and try to help ensure that, they are as protected as they can possibly be with the use of those tools.
What do you
Um,
think like that? Do you just keep on dripping on them and say, hey, we don't have a lease on file. This is something that you should do?
Yeah, I think, there's a number of steps in the process that we can take to continue that dialogue and communication. And then I think there's some additional educational tools that we can use around that. And I think, in terms of what are they looking for, it's been interesting because we use an algorithm to pair people. We had people say, hey, we really, we appreciate having you deliver people that are a perfect match, but we're kind of interested in, other people that may not have been a match. And so that's something that we've just actually added into the profile based on our user request, which has been a lot of fun.
Cool. I had a couple other questions and I just blanked out. So it's hard for me to generate questions in my head and listen at the same time. I'm not the best multitasker. So
It's okay. I get it. And it's Friday too, right before a holiday week.
yeah, no
We
kidding.
got all kinds of complications.
I need this weekend bad, man. This is beat. Although, I mean, any entrepreneur is going to understand that. I mean, do you have a family?
I do. I have a husband and a dog and a large extended family. Yes,
So how do you balance? I mean, it's hard. How do you balance work and life?
you don't. You just don't.
Yeah, we're honest. Okay, good.
Anybody that says they do is lying, right? I mean, there have been a number of nights where I crawl into bed at like 10:30 and, my husband's fast asleep and he says, who are you? Like, I haven't seen you in 5 days. And, I've just come back from living in San Francisco for 4 months,
Oh wow,
right?
yeah, you're right. He
And
didn't. I
so,
mean, he stayed in Colorado, I assume.
yeah, he stayed here and held down the fort. And, it's interesting. We were just again at the Entrepreneur 360 conference this week. And one of the best parts of the conference was me sitting in the audience, listening to other people's story and knowing that you're not just like a sadist or somebody who's crazy or just, completely OCD. Like this just is the reality of truly having a startup. And I tell people all the time, if you think there's this incredible balance in the first year or two or even three, I wouldn't suggest that you try to become a startup entrepreneur because it doesn't really work that way.
But they get out of the corporate world and they think that was hard, working 40 hours a week, and they want to be an entrepreneur so they can have freedom and flexibility. And I'm like, if you're going to start a company, you're going to be working a lot more than 40 hours a
Ooh.
week if you want to be successful.
Well, yeah, and especially if you have investors, right? Like
Right,
there's,
right.
our job here is to make sure that we get a strong performance on the business, and so yeah, it's interesting. I often say I'm working 16 hours a day. Some days you just don't know where the days go by. The other thing that I was actually just said this morning, I was sitting next to my VP marketing and I started laughing and I'm like, I'm going to start a blog about all of the different things that you can do in one day as the founder of a startup. Literally, like,
Do it.
it's either
Yeah.
setting up a new email for somebody or having a major investment conversation to interviewing with somebody like you to, it's the gamut, right? It's everything from, the minuscule to, huge sort of strategic elements as well. And every day is so different and none of them are the same.
I feel like every day usually takes me 4 hours to really get into what I need to do. It's email, and then it's like you see an email from someone that leads you into something else, and then you go back to email, and then it leads you in a different direction. And then it's like, 1 o'clock in the afternoon before I even get to, look at my to-do list.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I'm constantly behind in my email inbox. I'm like, I read a great article of somebody who was an entrepreneur said the number one thing that they say is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't respond in time. I'm sorry I didn't get to your email. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm running late. I'm sorry I haven't seen my family. I'm like, I relate to that.
That word sorry does get used a lot. What is your favorite third-party piece of software that you
Yeah.
use or the company uses on a daily basis that you just
Oh yeah, hands down Slack. Slack,
Slack?
Slack, Slack. Yeah, we are some major slackers.
So
Not
for
in the not
people,
in the literal term.
a lot of entrepreneurs know what Slack is. For some people listening in the audience, can you just explain what Slack does?
Sure. It's a communication platform, communication tool that we use internally to be able to quickly communicate through the team, sort of in a text message based style, but it's much more robust than that, so that we can actually share documents, we can collaborate very quickly. And for us, it's amazingly efficient because it eliminates, I often say for one conversation in Slack, we've eliminated 5 in email. So it's sort of I don't know that we could live without it at this stage.
People don't get too distracted during the day using it.
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think it's all about how you employ it and what you employ it for. But I
Right,
think for
right,
us, it tends to just keeps your inbox a lot cleaner, or slims it down a little, and just makes your communication a lot more effective.
right, right. Agreed. If you could be mentored by any entrepreneur out there, who would it be?
Richard Branson,
Nice. Why?
hands
Why
down.
him?
Because I mean, clearly, he is an amazing entrepreneur at every level. And I love that he's broad focused. And I think I'm incredibly intrigued by the impact efforts that he's focused on, and using the really looking at the things that he's been doing with the elders and the B team. And I'm inspired by all of that. And I love how he's been able to take the success from all of the other various businesses and bring that into those efforts. So always an inspiration for sure.
Yeah, definitely built one of the most respectable companies and brands out there today.
Hmm.
And then, kind of, one of my final questions: what is the future for Silvernest? Do you think that this is, I mean, I know it's going to be a massive platform, a hub, but do you think you can remain an independent company, or do you think some larger company is going to try to, come in and try to swoop you up?
The simple answer is world domination, right? I mean, isn't that why we're here?
Oh yeah,
We're going big. I always say, go big or stay home. I mean, what's the point,
absolutely.
right? So I don't know how the story ends. I just know that what I do know is that it'll be big one way or the other. That's what we're aiming for.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Oh, actually, you know what? One last question. What's your favorite TV show?
This is so sad. I don't watch TV, but that's so
Typical
crazy.
entrepreneur.
That's how
You read books? You can give me a book if you read books.
I do. I read books. That's kind of that's sort of my checkout at night. And
Okay.
I have to shamelessly say I'm a huge fiction reader because it's what it allows me to fall asleep at night.
There
So,
you go. I watch TV, which is probably why I don't get much sleep because, right. I think reading books probably puts your mind in a better spot to sleep than
mhm.
watching TV does. But I'm looking for some new shows, so it's a selfish question, I guess. I need some new shows to find.
Well, if
Um,
you find one, share one with me. I need some new inspiration.
I mean, right now I'm watching. I like Madam Secretary, and I like Designated Survivor with Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are pretty good. Those are
Yeah, they're
both
not
pretty
bad.
good.
That's about it, though. Other than that, I still watch Grey's Anatomy. If I happen to catch the new episodes, and that's about it. Like, there's not much on anymore that I really care about or that I can get into. So,
Well, I'm still in mourning over the ending of Downton Abbey. That one I was addicted to. So, nothing's filled that gap for me yet. So I think I'm gonna stay off of TV until I can find the replacement.
I know that's one of my parents' favorite shows. They would always watch together. So, but I have no idea what it is about or how it ended. So,
Well, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. You're just gonna have to dig in and see.
not sure it's ever going to happen. But well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's pretty exciting to hear what's going on at Silvernest, and it sounds like a really cool, massive opportunity. So I want to wish you the best of luck as you continue, and feel free to come back anytime and give us some updates.
Thanks, Joan. I appreciate it. I really appreciate you letting us be here today and enjoyed the conversation.
You're
So
so welcome. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, and happy New Year. I guess we're almost there.
there you go. All right. You too.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.